Hello and welcome to week 2 of our Discipleship Series, An Uncommon Life. My name is Brian Parse. I'm the lead pastor at First United Methodist Church in Chula, Vista. We're thankful that you have joined us for this discipleship and worship series, and we hope that it is a blessing to you. If you were here with us last week, you know that we are looking at the prayers, presence, gifts, service, and witness. This being week 2, we're focused on presence. Now, when I say presence, I'm not talking about the gifts under a Christmas tree. We love gifts under a Christmas tree, but that's not the subject for today. When we're talking about presence, we're talking about our physical presence. Where do we show up? With whom do we show up? For whom do we show up? Why do we show up? What does your presence matter to others? And if we're living a certain kind of presence in other people's lives, how does it deepen our own relationship with God? And so that's where we are today. I want to begin by sharing a scripture with you. Many of you probably have heard this before. You might have even said it or heard other people say it. Matthew chapter 18, verse 20, Jesus is talking here, and Jesus says this to his disciples: "For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among them." Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among them. Obviously, this is talking about God's presence, but somehow our presence is involved in this because it takes 2 or 3 of us, and somehow God's presence is invoked. Now, if you read Old Testament and New Testament, it's a sort of interesting look at where the people believed the presence of God was. At first, they believed the presence of God was sort of high up there in the heavens somewhere, and every once in a while God might visit us here on earth, but God's largely up in heaven. And then for a period of Hebrew history, they believed that God's presence was with them in a temple and in a tent, and sort of in a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, that you knew where God was. And then for a time in Jewish history, God's presence was believed to be in a certain part of the temple. And then when we get into the New Testament, what we see is in Jesus' baptism, the heavens opened and the presence of God descends upon Jesus. And then Jesus begins to baptize people, and somehow the presence of God comes from the heavens into Jesus, then into his followers, and maybe into all of humanity. And so then when Jesus says, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among them. That somehow when we gather, that God perhaps is called forth to be with us. And maybe at the same time that it's us who have God within us, that when we gather, that we're it's not that God's entering from the outside, that we're the very way in which God enters. We show up and God is there. So we show up and God is there. I want you to think about that. You know, oftentimes when we're parts of groups, whether it be in a church or in some other organization, and, you know, it's at the end of the day and we're tired and we should go, but we don't really feel like going, and so we skip that meeting or we skip whatever group it is. Oftentimes when we think about that, we think, well, you know, it's my loss. I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to gain. But what about the people who are counting on your presence there? Your presence means something to those people. And we know this because every one of us have been a part of a group where someone has said something, done something that was a tremendous encouragement to our spirit. And if that person hadn't been there, we would have missed out on that encouragement to our spirit. So what happens when you're the encouragement to someone else's spirit, but you decide not to show up and not to practice your presence in that gathering? That's what I mean. Our presence matters. Think of it this way. If we were to send a group of teenagers from our church, any church, it doesn't matter, off to do some great mission work, and they went off and they had a great time, and they came back and they had compiled all the pictures and the videos, and they were going to give testimony, and they were going to have a free dinner so that we could, the youth that we supported and that we helped to fund their mission trip, that they come back and they share with us what God did in their lives and through their lives. Think of what happens and what the statement is that we as adults make when those teens put together that dinner and they come out and the curtain opens and there's 4 people sitting in the audience. What did we just tell them? By the lack of our presence, we just told them that they don't matter. The good work they just did doesn't matter. That's not a compelling way to live life. That following God in that way is not important. Now think of what happens, that same event, that same scenario. The curtain opens and it's standing room only. What do we tell those students? Well, just the opposite. You matter. God matters. You're doing good work. We're proud of you. You're living life just as you should live it. You're faithful. You're a great example to us. We're ready to learn. Our presence means everything in that moment. So think about where you're going to show up. For whom are you going to show up? When are you going to show up? Why are you going to show up? What the scriptures say in a sort of mystery is that God is with us always. And somehow when we show up somewhere, we bring a stronger... God is already there, but somehow when we show up, it's like we fortify the efforts of God in that situation, that we bring more of God in that situation. When you show up for someone, you bring more of God for them. And I just want to close one more passage from the text, from the book of Ruth, a beautiful passage about being present. And I won't give you all the background, just hear these words. But Ruth said, "Do not press me to leave you or to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die. There I will be buried. May the Lord do thus and so to me, and more as well. If even death parts me from you." When Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more to her. 2 biblical characters. One that is saying there is nothing that anyone or anything could do that would cause me not to show up for you. Think about your presence this week. Where are you going to show up? What does it mean to those people for whom you are present? Your presence matters. God bless. Have a great week.